Welcome back to the exciting book of Shemuel. That is Second Samuel. Today we're going to be taking a look at chapter 18, part B. We started chapter 18 last week, and we're going to finish it up this week. And so this will be 18B. We left off at verse 8. So we're going to be picking it up today with verse 9. So have my first reader read 2 Samuel 18:9 through 16, please.
And Absalom met the servants of David, and Absalom rode upon a mule, and the mule went under the thick boughs of a great oak, and his head caught hold of the oak, and he was taken up between the heaven and the earth. And the mule that was under him went away. And a certain man saw it, and told Joab, and said, Behold, I saw Absalom hanged in an oak. And Joab said unto the man that told him, And behold, thou sawest him, and why didst thou not smite him there to the ground? And I would have given thee 10 shekels of silver and a girdle. And the man said unto Joab, Though I should receive 1,000 shekels of silver in mine hand, yet would I not put forth mine hand against the king's son. For in our hearing the king charged thee and Abishai and Ittai, saying, Beware that none touch the young man Absalom. Otherwise I should have wrought falsehood against my own life, for there is no matter hid from the king, and thou thyself wouldest have set thyself against me. Then said Joab, I may not tarry thus with thee. And he took 3 darts in his hand, and thrust them through the heart of Absalom, while he was yet alive in the midst of the oak. And 10 young men that bare Joab's armor compassed about and smote Absalom and slew him. Joab blew the trumpet, and the people returned from pursuing after Israel, for Joab held back the people.
Hallelujah. All right, so here it is. We see Absalom meets up with him and his troop. Meets up with King David and his men. Now remember the wonderful advice that Ahithophel gave him, that he shouldn't even win, right? And we see Ahithophel was right. He shouldn't have went, because it didn't turn out well for him. So he's riding upon his mule, and the mule goes through the thick boughs of a great oak, and his head get caught in the oak. And so here it is. He was taken up between the heaven and the earth. Here it is. He's hanging by his head, in an oak tree. And the mule take off from up under him. That's not a good position to be in, period, let alone when you're at war, right? You can't defend yourself, you're just kind of hanging there, and, here it is, Joab telling the man, why didn't you smite him? I'd given you 10 shekels of silver, and the man said, I don't care if you gave me 1,000 shekels. I heard the king say don't mess with him, so Joab, he goes, and he takes 3 darts, it says, and he goes and he puts them into the king's son. Said put him right in his heart, and that didn't kill him though. He was still alive. So I don't know if that was really his heart, but anyway, he thrust him through the heart of Absalom while he was yet alive in the midst. And then it says 10 young men that bore his armor, they surrounded him, and then they actually slew him, And so we see Absalom had kind of a horrific death, right? Can you imagine how afraid he was, just hanging by the head in that oak? Not, waiting for somebody to come and kill him, and then guess what? Somebody come and kill him. Not cool. Let me have my next reader Continue on verses 17 through 21, please.
And they took Absalom and cast him into a great pit in the wood, and laid a very great heap of stones upon him, and all Israel fled, every one to his tent. Now Absalom in his lifetime had taken and reared up for himself a pillar, which is the king's dell. For he said, I have no son to keep my name in remembrance, and he called the pillar after his own name. It is called unto this day Absalom's place. Then said Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, let me now run and bear the king tidings, how that Yahuwah has avenged him of his enemies. And Joab said unto him, Thou shalt not bear tidings this day, but thou shalt bear tidings another day. But this day thou shalt bear no tidings, because the king's son is dead. Then said Joab to Cushai, Go tell the king what thou hast seen. And Cushai bowed himself unto Joab and ran.
All right. Now we see Cushai means my blackness or blackness. Now here it is. We have Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, who was a good man, and he was the son of the priest. His name Ahimaaz meant brother of counsel. The son of righteousness. So he's expected to bring righteous counsel, a good report, right? Spiritually speaking. And Joab obviously understood this. And this is why he told him, Thou shalt not bear tidings this day, but thou shalt bear tidings another day. But this day thou shalt bear no tidings, because the king's son is dead. You're not bringing good news. You think you're bringing good news, but you're not bringing good news. See, because Joab, he truly knew King David, right? Every time somebody came to him, thought they was bringing good news, telling him about his enemy was dead, he got upset. And oftentimes they ended up dead, right? So here it is. Joab says to Cushi, you go and tell the king what you have seen. Now Cushi, his name means my blackness or blackness. So when the king see Cushi coming, he would know, it was bad news. It's dark news, not good. But let's see what happens. It goes on in verses 22 through 26. It says, Then said Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, yet again to Joab, But howsoever, let me, I pray thee, also run after Cushi. And Joab said, Wherefore wilt thou run, my son, seeing that thou hast no tidings ready? But howsoever, said he, Let me run. And he said unto him, Run. Then Ahimaaz ran by the way of the plain and overran Cushi.
Yeah.
Boy, had some burners, didn't he? And David sat between the two gates, and the watchman went up to the roof over the gate unto the wall, and lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, a man running alone. And the watchman cried and told the king. And the king said, If he be alone, there's tidings in his mouth. And he came a space and drew near, and the watchman saw another man running. And the watchman called unto the porter, and he said, Behold, another man running alone. And the king said, He also bringeth tidings. And the watchman said, Methinketh the running of the foremost is like the running of Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok. And the king said, He is a good man. He cometh with good tidings. Now you see how he immediately, figured that, okay, he's coming with good tidings because he's a good guy. Right? And Ahimaaz called and said unto the king, All is well. He's thinking all is well, and he fell down to the earth upon his face before the king and said, Blessed be Yahuwah thy Elohim, which have delivered up the men that have lifted up their hands against my Adonai the king. And the king said, Is the young man Absalom safe? And Ahimaaz answered, When Joab sent the king's servant and me thy servant, I saw a great tumult, but I knew not what it was. He was being too circumlocucious. And verse 30, and the king said unto him, Turn aside, stand here. Turn aside and stand here. And he turned aside and stood still. So see, he didn't actually get a chance to give him the bad news. And behold, Cushi came. And Cushi said, Tidings, my Adonai the king. And Yahuwah have avenged thee this day of all them that rose up against thee. And the king said unto Cushi, Is the young man Absalom safe? And Cushi answered, the enemies of my Adonai the king and all that rise against thee to do thee hurt, be as that young man is. And the king was much moved. And he went up to the chamber over the gate and wept. And as he wept, he said, oh, my son Absalom, my son Absalom. Oh, would Elohim I had died for thee. Oh, Absalom, my son, my son. You know, you really have to watch what you say. You know, you really have to watch what you say. You know, now, as we've been going through this, we've been taking a look at, you know, how the spiritual aspect of it and how it spoke to the time of our Messiah as well as the time, the end times that's to come, right? You know, and so it's no different here. It's no different here. And you know, even in the end times when all this stuff is going on and the enemies of Elohim are defeated, you know, it's not going to be a happy time. Not for Yah. It's not going to be a happy time. Because these are his sons as well. You know, and here it is, King David was experiencing this, and he said, would Elohim I had died for thee. You know, Yah decided to grant that request. You know, and seeing that it was too late for him to grant it in David's life, he granted it in the life of his son, Yahushua, his promised seed. You know, that was covenanted with David of Yahuwah that he would come. You know, so Proverbs 18:21 teaches us that the tongue has the power of life and death, and we're about to see just how powerful it is and how it does actually have the power of life and death. You know, we see King David praying this prayer that he wished that it would have been him that died for his son. You know, and so, you know, I tell you, watch your mouth. You know, because especially when you are of the Most High, because he hears everything you say and he's listening, and he may take you for what you're saying. You know, so you got to be careful what you ask for. Amen. Okay, so let's look at how this played out, because as he prayed that he wished it was him, you know, when Yahushua came, the promised seed that was covenanted with him through Elohim, it was him. You know, and we're gonna pray that I can show you the spiritual picture here. You know, it says Absalom met the servants of David. Now remember, David's prayed that he wished it was him instead of that died for his son instead of the other way around, right? You know, and so Absalom met the servants of David, and Absalom rode upon a mule. Anybody remember what the mule represented? Priesthood. Close. Ecclesia, absolutely. You know, the mule represents the ecclesia. You know, and so this is a picture here, you know, of Absalom riding upon an ecclesia. You know, and our Messiah, he too was on an ecclesia, even his 12 disciples. And it says, and the mule went under the thick boughs of a great oak, and his head caught hold of the oak. And he was up between the heaven and the earth, and the mule that was under him went away. Okay, and what I'm trying to show you is that this is was actually a prophetic picture of what would happen during the time of the Messiah, you know, and how he would be caught up on a great oak. Our Messiah was put on a tree. You know, he was hung on a tree, even as Absalom was hung on a tree. He was caught by the head on a tree. So was our Messiah hung on a tree. You know, it says, under the thick boughs of a great oak, and his head caught of the oak. Now, what I want you to know is that the oak is symbolic of the heads of Yahudah in Jerusalem. You know, and we're taught this in Yeshayahu. You know, Yeshayahu 21, chapter 1. You know, we're going to start with verses 21. And it says, how is the faithful city becoming harlot? Speaking of Jerusalem. It goes on to say, and it was full of judgment, righteousness lodged in it, but now murderers. The silver has become dross, the wine mixed with water. The princes are rebellious, the companions of thieves. Everyone loveth gifts and followeth after rewards. They judge not the fatherless, neither do the cause of the widow come to them. Therefore, saith the Adonai Yahuwah Zavaoth, the mighty one of Israel, I will ease me of mine adversaries and avenge me of mine enemies. And I will turn my hand upon thee and purely purge away thy dross and take away all thy tin. Verse 26, and I will restore thy judges as at the first, and thy counselors as at the beginning. Afterward thou shalt be called the city of righteousness, the faithful city. And I just want to point out, just as a side note, that he has restored the judges as the first and the counselors as the beginning. When you look at this thing, where we are now is very, 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 very similar to the time of the judges, you know, and the counselors that was at the beginning, where everyone just kind of done whatever was in their own heart. You know, they all went their own way, you know, and done whatever they felt was right. You know, it goes on to verse 7. It says, Zion shall be redeemed with judgment, and her converts with righteousness. Hallelujah. And the destruction of the transgressors and of the sinners shall be together. And they that forsake Yahuwah shall be consumed. For they shall be ashamed of the oaks which ye have desired. And ye shall be confounded for the gardens that ye have chosen. For ye shall be as an oak whose leaf fadeth, and as a garden that have no water. See, this is the very oak that our Messiah Yahushua head will get caught up with. And it says, and the strong shall be as a tow, and the maker of it as a spark, and they shall both burn together, and none shall quench them. You know, so this is the oak, that the spiritual oak that our Messiah got caught up with. And of course, they put him on a tree, a torture stake. And verse 17 of 2 Samuel 18 told us, and they took Absalom and cast him into a great pit. I just wanted to, I don't have it up here, but wanted you to reflect also on Joab, whose name means Yah is the Father. You know, even as the Yahudim, they profess that Yah is the Father. He took and put 3 darts, it said, into Absalom, right? Well, when they took our Messiah and they had him up on this torture stake, they put 3 darts into him as well. It wasn't in the heart, but it was in each hand and in the feet. You know, so they put 1 through each hand and 1 through both of his feet to hold him on that stake. So we had the 3 darts there as well. In verse 17 of 2 Samuel 18 says, and they took Absalom and cast him into a great pit in the wood, and laid a very great heap of stones upon him. And all Israel, fled everyone to his tent. Now when it says fled everyone to his tent, that doesn't actually mean it actually speaks to them, everyone fleeing to their cities. You know, so whichever city their tent was in. You know, now it speaks of a heap of stones, but when we look at this word heap of, it used to be a of right there, but anyway, when we look at this term heap of, which is gal, number 1530 in the Hebrew, it means something rolled. You know, so literally, you know, this literally says, and they took Absalom and cast him into a great pit in the wood, and they laid a very great roll, a very great rolled stone upon him, you know, and all Israel fled, everyone to his tent. But this speaks to something rolled, so it speaks of a very great rolled stone upon him, you know. And so the translators probably thought that didn't make sense, but it makes perfect sense, you know, when you consider what happened to our Messiah Yahushua. And Matthew 27:60, it tells us, and they laid it in his own new tomb, which he had hewn out in the rock, and rolled a great stone to the door of the sepulchre and departed. And he rolled a great stone. So you see, there was a great stone rolled upon Absalom's grave, and there was a great stone rolled upon the sepulchre of Messiah. You know, everything that happened to Absalom, even as King David had prayed, you know, happened to our Messiah Yahushua. But this time it happened to him so that the beloved could be, the beloved died so that the son could be saved, rather than the son dying so that the father can be saved. You know, so the beloved King Yahushua died so that all of his sons can be saved. Amen. You know, so it's a beautiful picture there, spiritual picture right there in the text. You know, 2 Samuel 18:14 says, Then said Joab, I may not tarry thus with thee. And he took 3 darts in his hand and thrust them through the heart of Absalom while he was yet alive, in the midst of the oak. Oh, this is what I was looking for. Yeah, well, I already mentioned they took those 3 darts. They put one through each hand and one through both of his feet, you know, to pin him to the torture stake. You know, and they also pierced his side, as we see in Yochanan 19:34. But one of the soldiers with a spear pierced his side, and forthwith came out blood and water. And then we have in verse 15, we have in verse 15 of 2 Samuel 18, it says, Then 10 young men that bear Joab's armor compassed about and smote Absalom and slew him. You know, and 10 is the number of law and responsibility. You know, so here it is, we see a spiritual picture of men with law and responsibility slaying Absalom, or our King Yahushua, you know, seeing that they're trading places here. So we see a picture of the law and responsibility, or those with the law and responsibility actually slaying him. And this is exactly what happened to our Messiah Yahushua. When we look at Yochanan 19:7, we see the Yahudim answered and said, We have a law, and by our law he ought to die. So again, we see the law slaying him, you know, because he made himself the son of Elohim. And then we have 2 Samuel 18:17, and it says, And they took Absalom and cast him into a great pit into the wood, and laid a very great heap of stones. Oh, there go my so they put a heap of stones, and as we already mentioned, this speaks to something rolled. You know, so it's actually a picture of a great stone being rolled over the grave of Absalom, and even as we see a great stone rolled over the door of the sepulchre where our Messiah Yahushua is laid. You know, so Yah truly did decide to answer King David's prayer. You know, and so it was, and so it is, you know, that the beloved of Elohim must die for the wicked. And we know that our Messiah Yahushua, the beloved of Elohim, he died for our sins. You know, and he's known as the sacrificial lamb of Elohim. Amen. You know, he is representative. He is the representative of the Passover lamb. You know, now something that I just want to call to your attention. You know, during the time of Pesach, they did sacrifice a lamb for the nation, but all of Israel was commanded to also sacrifice a lamb for each household. And so, if the Messiah was that sacrificial lamb for the nation, then who were all those other sacrificial lambs for each household? Absolutely. It's the martyrs. It's those who picked up their torture stake and followed Yahshua. That's who they are. You know, even as they laid, our Messiah Yahushua laid down his life, you know, for the wicked, for his wicked children, you know, we're called to lay down our lives for the wicked as well. You know, and this is what he would tell his apostles: pick up your torture stake and follow me. There's no greater love than a man lay down his life for his friends. You know, and so he laid down his life. And he called those even that ran away from him when he was being crucified, he caused them to be saved. You know, but many of them picked up their torture stakes and they began to follow him, and they began to lay down their lives so that others could be saved. And we're supposed to pick up our torture stakes and lay down our lives so that the wicked can be saved. You know, and so you see, it's not going to be, in the end times, you know, even though we get the victory isn't always sweet. You know, it's not going to be what many think when they think of victory. You know, Yah's ways is above man's ways. You know, and everything that we think, you know, that we think we know in the way it looks in the fleshly realm, it's going to be totally different in the spiritual realm. And we see that just from looking at scripture. We see it's going to be quite different than what we think. You know, when we think about victory, we don't think about dying. We think about living good. We're thinking about spoils of war and things of that nature. But no, in Yahushua, to lose your life is to gain it. You know, so this thing is really turned quite around. Those who seek to lose their lives shall gain it, and those who seek to gain their lives, how did that go? Those who find their lives shall lose them, and those who lose them for His name's sake shall find them. You know, and so that's how it goes. You know, here it is. You know, it's so contrary to our carnal nature, you know, to do something that will cause us, you know, that will bring pain to our physical. You know, but that's what we're called to do. You know, we're called to pick up our torture stakes. When he picked up his torture stake, they didn't call it a torture stake for nothing. It was torturous. You know, and that's exactly what it's meant to be, torturous. You know, but it's just a short time of torture, but it's a long time of bliss. It's a long time of greatness with Yah. It's a long time of grace and mercy, and you know, it's a long time. You know, these are the ones who strive for the high prize, as Apostle Paul say. You know, these are the ones who will rule and reign with him. You know, so yeah, you know, you may have to go through something in the here and now, but in the hereafter, it'll be great. In the hereafter, you know, it'll be awesome. Now that doesn't mean that you can't have a good time in the here and now either. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to make it sound all gloom and doom, you know. But in the end times, you know, those who think they're winning are actually going to be losing. Those who look like they're going to be winning in the physical are actually going to be losing in the spiritual. And those who look like they're losing in the physical will actually be winning in the spiritual. You know, and so if you don't understand this, then you're going to lose sight of which side you're supposed to be on when it comes down. You know, so Yah is pouring this out so that we can understand this, and so that we can be able to stand, you know, during that time, and we can have the patience of Job, and we can have the patience of the saints, and we'll be able to endure, you know, when we ought to be able to endure. So I just thank Yah for this lesson, and for this beautiful picture, you know, and for the beautiful sacrifice that our Messiah did for us. You know, He knew exactly what was going to happen, and guess what? He done it anyway. You know, so we're being told exactly what's going to happen, and for those of us who do it anyway, I say hallelujah. Hallelujah anyway. You know, it's going to be a yawesome time. It truly is. You know, and I know I say this a lot, but, you know, but it's the truth every time I say it. You know, it doesn't diminish how truthful it is, you know, because I say it a lot. But this week, we're much closer than we were last week. You know, it's coming. It's coming soon. You know, so I pray that you prepare, and that you put your spiritual white robe on, which is the righteousness of the saints, and you pick up your torture stake and follow me as I follow Yahushua. Hallelujah. That's all I have for you today. Pray it was a blessing. Hallelujah.